We started our encampment 3 weeks ago, and we started with 20 tents and expanded to 100 tents with hundreds of students coming out in support.
Everyone in Gaza is doing a great job. Everyone in Gaza, like if I'm gonna put a name out, I will be biased and not fair to all the other journalists, all the influencers, or even people on the street. Like at the time that they try to target journalists, there were kids posting.
Hello, my name is Stanley Heller. Welcome to the Struggle Video News. The International Criminal Court, which has already decided that Israel is plausibly committing genocide, has now ruled that Israel must stop its attack on Rafah. The ruling might have some actual results. If Israel ignores it, some countries of the world may take sanctions against Israel, thus taking part in the long call for BDS against the Israeli criminal government. The U.S. government, which sees Israel as a key attack dog for the empire, will undoubtedly defend Israeli conduct. Reports are that congressional leaders are arranging for Netanyahu to speak before a joint session of Congress. Chuck Schumer, who has called for Netanyahu's resignation, unaccountably will sign on to the letter. Genocide Joe must have spoken to him. On May 20th, we went to Middletown, Connecticut for the first court appearance of those arrested for blocking an entrance gate to the weapons maker Pratt & Whitney. We were there to show support and to learn more about the encampment in Middletown by students at Wesleyan University opposing the genocide of the Palestinians in Gaza. In the courtroom, we and other supporters watched the fairly undramatic proceedings. However, when we left after the cases of the 10 were postponed, there was a bit of a show because all these people had taken part. It sent a quiet but firm message to the judge that people are watching this case. Now to an interview about the encampment and the Pratt & Whitney action. So tell us about the encampment at Wesleyan, its reason and its results.
Yeah, for sure. So we started our encampment 3 weeks ago, and we started with 20 tents and expanded to 100 tents with hundreds of students coming out in support, all in the name of demanding justice for what is happening in Palestine right now in Gaza with the genocide that has been perpetrated for the last 8 months. Our university's endowment is invested in the companies that are complicit in perpetrating this genocide, so we demanded disclosure and divestment from these companies. And we got a pretty fantastic agreement that really takes us closer to not just divestment and disclosure at Wesleyan, but paving the way for the normalization of these outcomes across the country and across the student movement.
So exactly where we're in Middletown, where were these tents?
They were set up in the center of campus, right outside of the administration buildings, the president's office, and where other sort of administrative work happens, really to kind of obstruct campus life and show that our support for Palestine and make it impossible for people to ignore the murder of Palestinians in Gaza and the invasion of Rafah right now.
So people lived in the camp, in the tents?
Yeah, we lived in the tents in the encampment for 3 weeks. We provided our food, we had communal living, and every day we had, practices to really recenter and disrupt the normalcy that had been going on at our university for the past 8 months, where people were going to class, going to the dining hall, going about their day, just ignoring what is happening right now to students our age in Palestine who are unable to go to universities because their professors have been murdered, because their universities have been flattened, and because they themselves have been killed in this horrifying genocide. So we decided that it's impossible for us to ignore this, and therefore it should be impossible for the university and for our classmates and for the folks who are making the decisions on how our university should be run to ignore this as well.
So what was the response of the administration? And I know on other campuses, Columbia, I mean, they called the police and so on. How about at Wesleyan?
Yeah. So no police came to our encampment. We've been making this set of demands in various ways for several years, and the administration has never been responsive to them. We've demanded a vote from the Board of Trustees all year, and immediate divestment. And as a result of the pressure of the encampment and the 100 tents we set up, and the years of student organizing before that, we've gotten closer than we ever have to complete divestment and an academic boycott of Israel and the genocide.
And for the first time, we achieved disclosure. They disclosed how much of the endowment is invested in the military-industrial complex and the state of Israel. So this brings us closer than we have ever been. I've been involved in organizing at Wesleyan for 5 years on this issue, and we had made no progress. And now we have disclosure, the amount of the endowment that is invested in these companies, and we are closer than ever to divestment, where we have a very clear and very clearly timed out procedure that they have committed to evaluating these companies and to approaching divestment.
And how much of their endowment, what kind of money are we talking about?
So the endowment is $1.4 billion, and they are invested 1.7% in aerospace technologies, aerospace and defense, and 0.4% in companies that are a part of the state of Israel, all software companies. And more information can be found on the Wesleyan SJP Instagram about this. And that roughly equates to the 1.7% is over $20 million. So that just gives a scale of the quantity of funds that are invested in these companies.
So you mentioned some student support. Was there any student opposition? I assume there was some.
Our student support was absolutely overwhelming. We mobilized a student referendum that had record turnout for any student government proceedings. We had over 1,700 students vote in this referendum, which is absolutely unheard of at our school, and 88% of the students who voted in support of divestment and 87% of disclosure. So that kind of gives a sense of the massive and overwhelming student support at our university, and I
mean, yeah, that's a
Final question. You're here today in front of the State of Connecticut Superior Court. It has nothing to do with the encampment. Why did you come out today?
Well, there was 10 Connecticut and folks from around who had put their bodies on the line to protest the horrifying violence in Gaza right now. In Middletown, there is a factory that produces the engines of the fighter jets that are bombing whole city blocks right now, and organizers decided that that is unconscionable and that we needed to do something about it. And so dozens, around 100 folks mobilized about a month ago in April to shut down this factory, and 10 brave organizers put their futures at risk and decided that they wanted to take a stand and were arrested for it. And here at the Middletown court, they have threatened 90 days for this principal direct action. And so we showed up with around 50 supporters here at the courthouse to demonstrate that we, the Middletown and Connecticut community, stand with these brave activists.
And you know some of these people?
Yeah, we go to school with them. Yeah, and we've organized with them outside of that as well.
Including 2 Wesleyan students.
Yeah.
Going back to your encampment, what was you mentioned solid support from students. What about professors?
Yeah, we had a number of professors teach their classes at the encampment the first few days before the administration told them they weren't allowed to do that. The space of the encampment, in the context of the horrifying violence we've seen and all the mass graves we uncover with Palestinians murdered with their hands behind their back, it's been pretty devastating and impossible to continue as normal. And so having this space of people who have set up over 100 tents and come and uprooted their lives to show that this is not something we can continue with and not something that we can accept has been an incredible community that's allowed classes that come to the encampment to really be grounded in what's happening in the world and push for the university to pull their money away from the genocidal state of Israel.
And we've had lots and lots of faculty support from the blooming FJP, Faculty for Justice in Palestine group, and also faculty that are unaffiliated with that group who are just bringing food, who are sharing words of support. Just the whole Wesleyan and much of the Middletown and larger Connecticut community has come to back us up and support us, and it's really beautiful. And a lot of the Palestinians who have come to the encampment have shared that this progress, this mobilization, and this widespread support was not imaginable years ago. And to see thousands of students voting in support of divestment, to see hundreds of students showing up and putting their time and effort into this encampment is really, really moving and really demonstrates that we will see a free Palestine within our lifetime, within coming years, very soon.
And we're set up incredibly well this fall with the agreement and with the mass mobilization of students to achieve divestment in September. We're going to keep pushing and fighting until the summer, and we're going to keep pushing and fighting until Palestinians have the right to return and full rights on their land.
I love our poets. Read Palestinian poetry. I love our music. Listen to Palestinian music. I love our novelists, our writers, our intellectuals, our teachers, our scholars. Read their work.
On the 21st, the Middle East Crisis Committee held its Courage Award in Danbury, Connecticut. The ceremony was held in honor of Palestinian journalists collectively. It was an evening event here in Connecticut. Palestinian journalist Faten Elwan went out of her way to speak to us. It was 1:30 in the morning, local time in the West Bank. Rather than a talk, we conducted an interview. I started by asking her about stories she was working on.
So they decided to raid the refugee camp on a prime time and open fire towards everything that is moving in front of them. So now the number raised up to 8 Palestinian killed in the camp. The operation is still going. They're bombing Rafah and they're raiding several areas in East Jerusalem. And this is how it goes every night. So for us Palestinian journalists, the prime time of working is at night, and then you have to cover it in the morning. So when you see a Palestinian journalist telling you that we don't know what sleeping means and sleeping is for the dead, believe it.
Now I realize that I'm talking to the audience and you don't see me, so let me get the... Technology is nice when it works flawlessly. Here I am again.
Hi, nice to see you.
We know you were an associate and friend of journalist Shireen Abu Akleh, who was murdered by the Israelis 2 years ago. Most of us know about the killing and the lack of U.S. government interest, even though Abu Akleh was a U.S. citizen. But could you perhaps talk about her importance as a TV journalist and her influence on your work?
Well, Shireen was and still is, and I prefer to talk about her in the presence because she is present in every single aspect of your life. And so we grew up on the sound of Shireen, like, though we are really good friends, but there is like a difference in age, which for me was learning from Shireen is like what you want to be in the future. So when everyone say that we grew up on the sound of Shireen, it is true, because This is what we saw, for instance, in her funeral, and all generation from different ages were there just to take part of it. And you have 20, 18 years old kids, which are like the Gen Z new generation that don't know anything about TV and the legend of Shireen Abu Akleh, for instance. You'll be shocked that they still know, because they grew up on her voice, especially those who grew up in the invasion and the second intifada, in which this is when the hit of Al Jazeera channel, and the sound of Shireen was in every single camp, in every single city, in every single village in the West Bank, in Jerusalem, and inside of occupied land of Palestine. So she is a legend, and even though now she's not here between us, you can never see one day that passed by without someone posting بدها طولة نفس, and that means, and that was during the coverage of the war in 2022, in which that was in Sheikh Jarrah, when she stood in the chair inside of Sheikh Jarrah, which is now under Israeli raid, because it's the day where they light the candle of their independence, and that means that all Palestinians in the West Bank, in Sheikh Jarrah, will be under curfew, so they can celebrate, settlers in that area can celebrate freely, lighting up this candle. And so her voice and her messages, which was always an encouraging messages, you will hear them popping every now and then, especially that now this genocide is being conducted in Gaza, and all the time people are wondering, where are you? And especially that video that she did at the end of the last war in Gaza, in which she said, finally, alhamdulillah, there's a ceasefire. So she's here, though physically she's not here. Emotionally, she is here, covering the Palestinian story. She is here, and her sound will always be here.
Thank you. Besides Shireen, who are some of the journalists who inspired you growing up? And then, this is a big question, but the second part would be, who are some of the journalists in Gaza who you'd like to talk about, some who are martyred or injured, or are just doing a great job right now?
Everyone in Gaza is doing a great job. Everyone in Gaza, like, if I'm going to put a name out, I will be biased and not fair to all the other journalists, all the influencers, or even people on the street. Like, at the time that they try to target journalists, there were kids posting. That the time that kids were posting, there were influencer posting. You cannot put a name, because everyone is covering that heroic story, this ugly genocide, with passion, putting their life on the line. There's, like, you all know what Al Dahdouh, and like he set up a new level for, okay, I have a cold. Okay, you should be embarrassed of yourself by saying your temperature is 40 and you have a cold and you cannot go to work. Well, the man lost most of his family and he showed up on his live shot. So he honestly made it harder for all the journalists of the level of tolerance in covering the story. But you also have Anas Sharif, you have Sami, you have his cameraman that lost his leg, and then 2 weeks after he was standing behind his camera, you have Haneen, you have Isra, you have Bisan, you have so many names that it will be unfair to not talk about them. But we also have 138 journalists who lost their life in this genocide, who being targeted for putting the story online. And it's not a coincidence. They're not just in the wrong place at the wrong time. No, they are being targeted. Like 2 journalists, at least, that we have at least visual records of them being targeted by a quadcopter. And quadcopter is the new drone that Israel is using to kill civilians in Gaza. So you can see it. You can see it today in Jenin. Like, suddenly we find ourselves in an ambush by Israeli sniper who start, like, we usually work in packs. We don't work, you go to Jenin alone. No, we gather all the journalists, we go as a convoy, we come back as a convoy, we move as a convoy. So it's clear that we are all journalists. And then suddenly we find ourselves under fire, not one time, two times, until a journalist got shot. Thank God it was a slight injury, but it's getting out of control what's happening in here, that there is no respect for anything. No paramedic, not journalist, nothing at all. And they have like a carte blanche in which they can kill, target you, do whatever they want, knowing that no one is going to hold them accountable. And it's becoming, you will say that it's a 75 years conflict, but it's not. It's a conflict that is being reborn on and on and on and on. And though it's been going for 75 years, there's always an update of the level of inhumanity, unethical action that the army is conducting on the ground. So it's becoming outrageous, to be honest.
Thank you. And I know your time is so valuable. We were going to have 5 more minutes, if we may, for some questions from the audience. I don't know if you can see the audience, but we have, we can move it. Yeah, or stand. We have a question here.
You want me to speak in the mic? Or?
Speak here, I guess.
Okay,
her.
got it. Hey,
It's confusing.
Faten. Hi, Jackie Gusdell, Western Connecticut State University.
You guys, nice to meet you.
You too, my dear. Question. The Netanyahu government is using the excuse of we're looking for Hamas. Now, in Jenin, in the West Bank, Hamas does not control that. So on the street, what is the word? What's their motivation? What is their excuse for doing what they're doing?
Well, their excuse that they can and they will and they don't give a shit. To be honest, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like they don't care. Like they don't care. Like honestly, I got shot 3 times. In 2 times, the soldier just held the gun up and down and he shot me with my press gear on me. And when I was so pissed off and I ran out, because when you get shot first time, like when you get shot in the beginning, you don't feel the wound and you'll be able to move if it's not like in the nerve. But I just went up to him and I said, like, do you know what the F you did? And he said, yeah, I just shot you. Simple as that. It's simple as that. What excuse? Okay, so when was Hamas created? Don't give me, like, this Hamas story is becoming like too disgusting in a way that Itamar Ben-Gvir today officially went on TV saying that we're gonna go occupy Gaza and we want all of Gaza to build settlements and we want to expand settlements. So it's not about Hamas. And it's not like, okay, so we're under attack every day. So living in the West Bank means since the 7th of October, we've been under blockade. And under blockade means if I want to go from Ramallah to Bir Zayt, I need to know that I'm going to waste 45 minutes of my life to go on other roads because they closed the main road for the use of settlers only. This is, if it's not a clear apartheid state, I don't know what it would be. If every time I'm going to go in the morning, and I'm not exaggerating, every morning on my way to the office, I have to cross through Israeli army, harassing students and people going to work. You can tell, I've been covering the story for too long, that I can tell who's the new soldiers and who's the newcomers that they send them to the West Bank to train on us, on living human beings, on people who have soul and visuals. They killed a student left, like on the same day Shireen was killed, a student was killed at that at this settlement right in my neighborhood. Like my house was bombed twice from this settlement. And that was in 2000 when there was an invasion. We don't have Hamas in here. So it's becoming ugly and disgusting and outrageous. And in the West Bank, like, you know, I was convicted of being Hamas. I said, like, huh? What? Look, yeah, CD, look at my haircut and look at my tattoo. Well, even Hamas will not accept me. Like, I don't know what the imagination that they have is outrageous. Like how they put it out, as they always need an excuse. Hamas was created in 86, but the genocide was conducted like even before. for years and years and years. I'm a refugee. My mom is a refugee. My dad is a refugee. His mom and dad are refugees. It's a non-stop action, but was so different now that they just kill you. They just kill you. That like on the land day a few days ago, they killed a Palestinian. Like there was not even clashes at Beit El. They were just crossing by, and there was one Jeep, and suddenly we hear gunshot, and then there's a dead person behind me. Like, what the hell happened? What was the reason for you to shoot this guy? Nothing. Maybe he have a bunch of new soldiers that need to be trained on shooting Palestinians or to use his like snipers, and then he just killed that. The Bedouin community, it's like every day there is a forced displacement of those Bedouins because settlers now are acting a gangster on the street, attacking everyone, everywhere, in every street. And you're talking about a lot of settlements in the West Bank and more than 777 checkpoints with settlers in between in every corner. So in every breath that you take, you're in danger.
After she spoke, we had members of the audience hold up signs with pictures of Palestinian journalists, some who had been murdered, some who had been injured, and all who had provided great service for the world. Remember, Israel won't let international correspondents into Gaza unless they agree to be embedded with the Israeli army.
I can see a lot of shireen over there.
Yeah.
And a lot of watermelon.
More of the ceremony next week. By the way, you can see things in advance of our shows on our YouTube channel. This is the QR code to get to it. I think we have about 2,500 videos up on that YouTube channel, The Struggle Video News. Thanks for watching tonight. See you next week. I'm Stanley Heller for The Struggle Video News.